Listen, man, no one's gonna tell you this, but I will. You are wasting your life trying to make a woman feel something that she has already stopped feeling. You are bending your time, your attention, your dignity, your headspace, trying to trigger a reaction in someone who is no longer invested in you. You think if you go quiet, she will feel the loss. You think if you disappear, she will remember. You think if you withhold, it will wake her up. But here is the brutal truth most men don't want to face. Women do not miss men who are still emotionally available to them in silence. They only miss men whose lives no longer orbit them, men who have moved beyond them psychologically, not men who are simply not texting. Silence does not create longing when attachment is still obvious. Disappearing does not generate attraction when your identity still revolves around her. She can feel it. They always can. The insecurity, the expectation, the fragile hope that sits behind your withdrawal. You're not gone, you're paused. You're not detached, you're waiting. You're not rebuilding, you're checking the door every 5 minutes hoping she remembers. She can smell that weakness even when you say nothing, and that is why she doesn't miss you. The problem is not that you try to make her miss you. The problem is that you are still trying for anything at all. A man doesn't try to create a reaction from someone who is no longer his. He doesn't manipulate absence to regain relevance. He doesn't audition for a place in her memory. He lets the chapter close by force and then goes somewhere she is no longer part of his emotional landscape. Because the point is not to make her feel loss. The point is to become the kind of man who no longer cares if she does. You think you want her to miss you, but what you actually want is validation. You want proof that you mattered. You want confirmation that you are not forgettable. That is where your suffering comes from. Not from the woman, not from the breakup, not from rejection, but from the ego wound of not being chosen. You are aching over a bruise to your identity, not a shortage of options. That is why you obsess. That is why you check her social media. That is why you rehearse what she might be thinking. You are trying to heal an ego wound through the mind of a woman who already discarded you. And here is the truth you must digest if you want to cure this pain instead of circling it forever. The only way to win in this situation is to stop playing. You do not beat emotional dependence by reversing it. You end it by collapsing the entire game. You do not try to make her miss you. You build a life where whether she does or doesn't is irrelevant, because once something is irrelevant, it loses its power over you. And the moment she senses she no longer controls your emotional weather, that is the first moment she actually feels something real again. But don't misunderstand. The goal is not to spark her reaction. The goal is to no longer care whether a reaction comes. That is masculine control. That is emotional sovereignty. That is the difference between a boy looping in circles over one woman and a man who is capable of walking away without turning his head. You need to understand something about female psychology. Women are not moved by your absence. They are moved by the proof that their presence in your life no longer matters. Women only feel the loss of men who become men that cannot be recovered. They miss the version of you that no longer exists. Not the one waiting in the dark hoping to be missed. And most men never become someone else. They just go quiet while remaining exactly the same. You don't fix this by silence. You fix it by transformation. You do not go no contact to manipulate her mind. You go no contact to regain your own. You stop reaching out, not because it makes her chase, but because it detoxes you from dependency. You detach, not to pull her closer, but to no longer identify yourself through her existence. You walk away, not so she follows, but so you can finally live in a reality where she isn't the center of your nervous system. Every minute you spend trying to engineer her emotions is a minute you delay your own evolution. And evolution is the only thing that actually gets you out of this hell. Not strategy, not tactics, not reverse psychology, not trying to trigger regret, but the internal death of the version of you that still needs her to validate his worth. A man is free the moment he ceases to be emotionally conditioned by a woman's response. This is where masculine self-control begins. Not in withholding attention from her, but in withdrawing emotional dependency from yourself. The enemy is not her. The enemy is the part of you that thinks she is the cure, that thinks her regret would fix your wound, that thinks being wanted by her would make you whole again. You are treating her like a mirror for your manhood, and that is why you feel destroyed when she does not reflect you back. You don't need to make her miss you. You need to make yourself unrecognizable to the man who begged for her. Not by pretending, not by acting cold, not by theatrics, but by dissolving the internal hunger that makes you chase in the first place. When you are no longer hungry for her validation, you are no longer weak. When you are no longer waiting for her return, you are no longer controlled. When you are no longer fixated on her memories, you are no longer emotionally enslaved. Understand something else. Women don't chase men who want to be chased. They chase men who are no longer placeable. Men who vanished not physically, but psychologically. Men who turned a corner that cannot be walked back. Men who did not simply go missing, but evolved past the need to be found. You don't try to be missed, you become unreachable in identity. And here is the paradox. Once you truly stop caring whether she ever thinks of you again, that is exactly when she does. Not because she loves you, not because she regrets, but because women are triggered by absence only when a man is no longer emotionally tethered to them. That is the frame she respects. Not the frame of silence, but the frame of indifference. Not the distance of days, but the distance of identity. Stop trying to bend her psychology. Reconstruct your own. Your focus now is not to make her think, but to rebuild the mind that once thought she was essential. Your mission is not to provoke longing, but to become the man who no longer operates from longing. This is where suffering dies, when you stop living like someone who lost something and start living like someone who outgrew it. A man does not wait to be missed. He replaces the version of himself who was missable. You don't heal by being chosen again. You heal by no longer needing to be. The moment you stop trying to make her feel anything, that is the moment you finally take your power back. Because the victory is not when she comes back. The victory is when it wouldn't matter if she did. When you can look at the version of yourself who once begged to be remembered and feel nothing but distance from him, that's the moment the chapter is truly closed. And once you reach that point, something shifts in her world too. Women don't feel the loss until the man they knew no longer exists. They don't feel the absence until the attachment has died on your side. And when that day comes, when you are no longer emotionally catchable, that is when her mind begins to work, to rewind, to reevaluate. If you want to go deeper into what actually happens next, watch the next video.